Hello, I hope everyone's doing alright. I know things have been a little crazy recently, but the one good thing about not going out much is that I was actually able to finish this rather quickly, so I'm a little happy about that. As you can see from the title, this is the 5-style challenge, and in it I will be doing a voiceover talking about like all the different styles I chose, how I try to fit my character to them, and all that good stuff. And in case any of you want to find these artists for yourselves, I will leave their links in the description below, so feel free to check that out. That's all I have for this intro though, so I hope you enjoyed the video. The character I chose for this challenge is the protagonist of my webcomic. His name is Axel. I've been drawing him for many years now, so I thought that would make this whole thing a little easier than a character I was less familiar with. And since my webcomic is gay, I felt it was only fitting that all the other styles I chose were all from other LGBT or gay webcomics that I've read. So that's like the whole theme for this challenge video. As you can maybe tell from that little blip that just appeared on the screen, this was not the first drawing I worked on for this video. It was actually the last one. I kind of forgot that people usually draw in their normal style first, so you could compare it to the others. But with editing, it's still at the beginning, so there's nothing to worry about. I do have to apologize though, because you will see a few more of those blips throughout the video. There's not too many. I managed to edit most of them out, but I was like looking through them every now and again to make sure I didn't have anything too similar. So yeah. Anyway, as I just mentioned, this is my regular comic style, just to show what Axel normally looks like. I usually do minimal shading and highlighting, because if I try to get too fancy with it, pages would definitely take me like 30 hours each, and I don't have time for that. This next style is from the webcomic Tripping Over You, which is a slice of life that shows the main couple's progression into young adulthood and all the struggles that come with it. This is probably one of the stories I've been reading the longest. I remember starting it back in like the middle of high school, and I'm already about to graduate college, so it's been at least 6 years since I've started reading this one. I'm sure it's much older than that too. I love seeing the minor changes over the years, but one of the things that has stayed the same in this art style is how pointy it is, especially when you compare it to mine. They use very angular shapes, so I had to make the chin quite pointy compared to normal. I also had to make his mullety hairstyle less extreme and cartoony and more like an actual mullet, which kind of hurt me. I should also mention the eyes were very different for me to draw. My boy Axel here is supposed to be a rather expressionless character. I thought that would be a good direction for him to counteract how awkward and excitable his personality actually is. So keeping his eyes droopy in all these styles was a little difficult, but I think I managed to do a decent job with it. Shading wasn't really that difficult. I just had to find the right colors, and after that it was all cell shading. But the one thing that did take a hot second was trying to find the right texture to overlay. I don't know if you can notice it in the original style, but in certain colors especially, I would see like a slight texture, and I tried to duplicate that as best as I could. This third art style is from the webcomic Heartstopper. I didn't know about this comic until probably the end of last year. I started seeing it all over my Twitter feed and figured I might as well give it a shot. And lo and behold, it was just as nice as everyone said it was. This is another slice of life story, and basically it's about a gay high school boy who falls in love with a very friendly rugby player who starts talking to him. But anyway, this comic style is like completely different from mine in many ways. But the main things that I can put into words are the more realistic hairstyle, once again, and also just how close the mouth is to the nose. I usually try to put my mouth a little more towards the middle, but this one is like way up there. So the chin is very long in comparison. It's very cute though, I don't dislike it. The eyes are also a lot smaller and simpler than I usually draw them, but I actually really like the way they look in this style. This comic is also in grayscale, which I'm not good at whatsoever. My comic is actually in color because of how much trouble I have with grayscale. For some reason I just can't see values as clearly than when they're in color. I don't know why, but this was actually a very nice change of pace, and I especially liked how easy it was to put down highlights. This next style comes from the webcomic Jamie. It is one of my favorites. I've actually been reading it since before it got revamped a few years back. I don't know exactly when I started reading it, but it's definitely a good one. It's one of my favorite art styles too. Just like the other comic styles, this one has more realistic hair. The face shape is also more angular with like extra detail in the jawline. And finally, like the eyes and the nose are also a little different, though that's harder to notice, I think. I actually got hired to be the colorist for Jamie at the beginning of this year, so I do have experience with this coloring style. But even so, it's such a detail-oriented style that it took me the same amount of time to finish as the others did. So I would hate to think of how long it would have taken me if I had no experience whatsoever. This final art style is from the webcomic Out of the Blue. It is also a relatively recent one for me. I probably only started it at the end of 2018 or beginning of 2019. But so far it has been both a very beautiful story visually, and I also think that the story itself flows really well. It's about a blind dam worker in his mid-20s, I think, who, happens to hang out at a lake one day that is being inhabited by a merman, although obviously since he's blind he doesn't realize that at first. This style is no doubt the most difficult for me. All the other ones had line art, so it wasn't too hard to get used to, but this one is a painterly style, and I don't really paint digitally that often. I only did 2 drawings last year in this kind of style, so it was definitely something I had to get used to. That's why I gave myself probably twice as much time on this one than I did for all the other ones. Probably the least content with this one, just because I feel like I wasn't able to, get the style right as much as the other ones. There's definitely a lot still lacking in it, I think, but I just, didn't want to spend forever on it, so I kind of just called it a day at some point. And it's probably from the brush that I chose, but I wasn't able to get the big textures that you can obviously see in the original art style. Since this is supposed to be more of a creative exercise, I'm not gonna be too harsh on myself. This one was still fun to do regardless of how close I got, and I definitely learned a few things about this style in general. That's pretty much all I have to say on the styles individually, but I will use the rest of this time to talk a little bit about the artists and stuff like that. As I've said, I've read all these stories, and if I didn't enjoy them, I wouldn't have chosen to draw in their styles, so I would really recommend that you go to the links and read them. And if you do go read them, you'll be supporting, LGBT artists who are working on the things that they love, which is wonderful. I follow all of them on social media, so I can attest to how nice they all are as people. But that pretty much does it. So at the end of the video, I'll show a side-by-side of all the drawings so you can see the differences a little more closely. And just like all the other artists, my information will also be in the description. So if you like my work or you want to read my webcomic, feel free to check that out. I also stream on Twitch, so if you ever want to see me work on something in real time, I'm over there as well. I really had fun with this video, even though I had to do a ton of voiceover, which I'm not that good at. But I hope you enjoyed it regardless, and I will see you next time.